Welcome back to the channel, guys. Wanted to share with you kind of a unique mower. Again, this isn't like my John Deere Green Deck 12SB. It's a mower that doesn't really exist. It was assembled from several other mowers to make it. So this is a John Deere 12PC. I'm like, well, I didn't know a 12PC existed. 12PC means 21-inch, 2-cycle push mower commercial, which means originally it didn't have a transmission. It doesn't have a blade clutch. It was just a zone start model. You started it, and as soon as you let go of the bar, the engine stops. It was the lightest version of any configuration for this silver deck or green deck mower because it had no blade clutch, no transmission, and it had the less than 20-pound 2-cycle engine on it from Briggs & Stratton, which is made in Japan by Komatsu Zenoa. So a little bit about this particular mower. The things I do for hobbies. So I'm here in East Texas, and I drove to Alabama, Birmingham, Alabama, for one of these mowers, and I drove to Greenville, Tennessee for another mower and on a separate date. So talking about an 8-hour and a 12-hour trip each way just for a mower hobby. The 2 cycles, I really enjoy working with these, and I really enjoy using them. And so tried to talk the wife into, let's turn it into a little vacation. So, you know, go to Nashville and, you know, do some stuff while I run and go pick up this other mower. First one that I picked up in Tennessee, it was actually owned, the original owners were people that worked in Greenville at the assembly plant there in Tennessee. So they bought it brand new. They were original owners of it, and they had passed away, and their son was selling it, and I picked it up from them. It did not run, but it did have compression, and so that was good enough for me because, you know, I'm mechanically inclined enough where I can make it work. The other one, it ran for a little while, but the more I got into it, the more it was pretty rough. It had a cracked deck, but I had a good engine. I was able to find a third mower on Facebook Marketplace in Oklahoma. That was a 12PC with a seized engine. Okay, what you'll find with these 2-strokes is as time goes on, people that may buy and sell them or whatever, and then they don't realize that these are 2-cycle engines, so they just put straight gas in them and then they ruin them. You know, it'll score the cylinder, seize up, whatever. And that appears to be what happened with this 12PC. But 12PC was the commercial, so it had the metal wheels, it had all of the commercial stuff, the adjusters. It just, of course, was a push model, so I needed a good transmission. Well, the 2 other ones that I bought, neither of those had a good transmission, so I needed a 4th mower. But I needed a commercial mower because the transmission in the commercial mowers, the shaft is actually just a little bit shorter to compensate for the wider wheels on the commercial model. So I came across a JX85, which is the green deck commercial version, and that it was leaking oil like no other. It was in rough shape. So anyway, it was going to be a good mower for parts, and it had a good transmission. So that's all I was concerned about. So we took 4 mowers to make this one, and all of that effort put into it, I was going to make sure it was done right. So I took the best deck out of all of them, which was one of the silver decks. I had it completely bead blasted and powder coated, and I went in a custom color. So if you look really close here, it's kind of got a metallic color change to it, but in most light it looks black. I had the handlebars powder coated black. I had the muffler surround powder coated shiny silver. They were chrome from the factory, but they start to pit. The wheel adjusters, I had those powder coated. The backside of the wheel covers, I had those powder coated. So there was just a lot of effort that went into this. And the other problem I ran into, which you may have heard me talk about in other videos, the Komatsu Zenoa engine that's on these, they are known as time goes on for leaking around where these 2 halves of the fuel tank were put together. But it doesn't leak on the outside usually. Usually it leaks on the inside at the same spot on those where the 2 parts came together. Both of those mowers, both engines, had that same issue. So I was on eBay, I was on the forums trying to find one of these, and these are like the unicorn part for these other than a piston and a cylinder head. And so I finally came across one, and I actually came across two. There was a seller in North Carolina or something like that, that it was new old stock, and I was kind of taking a risk because they were not cheap either. They were like $150 a piece, but I was taking a risk that maybe they'd be all right and they weren't gonna, haven't shrunk or cracked or anything yet over, you know, being 35 years old. So far, so good. I put it on here. I've used this now for 3 seasons and it hasn't leaked on me. So, you know, I'm all right there. The reason that I run 32-to-1 instead of 50-to-1 in this mower is for more of a safety margin than anything. You may lose a little bit of power that way at the expense of emissions and everything else as well. But you cannot find a piston or a cylinder head for this. So I have an extra ring set. So, you know, if it ever has low compression for something from the rings, I can do that, but you cannot find a cylinder head or a piston. So once that happens, you're off to finding another engine. But fortunately, I have enough parts here where I could probably make something work. I have 2 of these that I run pretty regularly. So this one doesn't get as much use as it did before now that I have my other one up and running. That was the one you saw in my other video, the green deck 12 SB of the modern one. There was a 12 SB that John Deere made in the mid to late 80s, but it had a Lawn Boy 200 series engine in it. It did not have the Briggs & Stratton. Completely different design. People call those the John Boys, you know, because it was owned by OMC and it was built by OMC for John Deere. So it's basically a Lawn Boy. And so that's why they call it the John Boy. I basically took the best of everything that I could to make this mower. And so it's a mower that John Deere never made. There never was a commercial 2-cycle with a blade clutch and a self-propelled transmission. If I was gonna change anything, I may actually get rid of the blade clutch and just go to where it runs all the time, despite whether or not you're behind it. That's, you know, you're bypassing a safety aspect of it, but I've done it with the other one, and you have so much more power because that blade clutch weighs 7 pounds, and that's 7 pounds of unsprung weight that the engine also has to turn. So these have a very narrow power band. So if it starts to bog down, it bogs down quickly. It's not like the 4 cycles. They don't have a lot of torque. They need RPM and they need a certain power band. So if they don't have that, they're not going to be happy. And so I think by eliminating that blade clutch, it definitely made it a whole lot nicer with that with the green deck version that I have. So, but it is an amazing mower. It bags amazing. You know, that's primarily what I use this for now is bagging, where my other one I use for mulching, but does an outstanding job. If you guys ever come across one, by all means, pick it up. If you see one and you don't want it, get a hold of me because I will buy it. You know, trying to keep these running, and it's not inexpensive to keep them running, but I think it's the cool factor outweighs that. So, you know, total that I invested in this mower is probably a little over $1,000 to restore it and get it where I wanted to. But if you also factor in the fact that I've made 3 long distance trips for this to exist, you know, there's a lot more involved because that's time off of work, that's fuel in my truck. You know, there's maybe triple that amount, if not more, is what it costs to have this as it sits today. So anyway, that's what I have for you. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you soon. been raining for the last many weekends. Struggling to get this done. It's wet and it's tall, and 2 strokes don't have a lot of torque.